Hello again. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. So we're basically going to examine something called after image. If you'd like, we can play this together. Let me just set it up a bit. You'll notice this black dot here, right, in the center of this paper. Stare at this page, and I don't know if this is going to work on a screen, but we'll try it. If it doesn't, try it at home without the screen. Just try it in physical reality. Stare at a very bright sheet of paper. You want to stare at this for about 30 seconds to a minute. And I'm going to do it with you. So we'll just sit here and stare. And notice anything about it. What's going to happen is the color perceptors in your eye, the cones, are going to actually start to fatigue. They're going to get tired, and you're going to see the red that looked so bright at the beginning is going to start to fade and appear almost, what would you call it? Feel free to bark out comments. I would say milky or gray or kind of soft or suede-y, but just keep staring at that black dot. Don't take your eyes off of it for nothing. You'll also notice something around the edges, and just tell me what that is to yourself. You'll notice some color flashes, but don't go looking for them. Just look at that black dot, stare at that black dot as long as you can. We're going to go another maybe 30 seconds. You really want to get your eyes worn out. You don't want to move at all. You want to really focus. Trust me on this. I know it's sort of a boring exercise from this point of view, but in a moment you'll see all around the edges, it's starting to happen to me now. I'm seeing color flashes, and the red that was there in the beginning is almost gone. The more you relax your eyes and stare right at that dot without moving, you'll see the red completely disappears. Now watch. I'm going to reach in here and just pull that away, and what do you see? I see a big green glowing square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back for a minute. I'm going to play a little bit of a game. Look at my fingers. My fingers actually have the perception of what your eyes have in them. So there's like a green flash. And if you want to see something really neat, is if you take, we know we're going to see the opposite color. We're going to see a flash of green. If I take a green rather than white in the background, it creates what we call a super green. It looks like it's glowing green in the center, and you might see a different color around the edges a little bit. If you stare at this for a while, it'll start to fatigue you in the opposite direction. You'll start to see red, but you need a little black dot in the middle to focus really well. So what starts to happen, which is weird, is that your eyes neutralize. You almost see purple now or white. It's almost pure white light, which may appear purplish or odd to your eyes. So that is what determines, it's called after image, and you can look at it in your fact pack. You can read about it a little bit, but this is what determines why blue is opposite orange on a classic color wheel. So if you look here, what we call a complement is a physiological phenomenon in your eyes. It's actually when you stare at this color, you should see something akin to this color in theory. These are not exact opposites. So if you want to find exact opposites, you have to stare at one, see what appears, and then try to find something like that. When you stare at that color, you should see the other color. And that's when you have an actual perfect complementary pair rather than what we have here is a theoretical kind of complementary pair. Now another thing, we discussed monochrome at the beginning. If you remember, that was a whole set of reds, something just red on red on red. How is spread, the word spread, different than monochrome? And this is tough for people to see, and we'll see how far we get here. But what I want to do is consider it with each other. It's basically, I don't think it'll be that tough on you all. Basically what spread says is that you can have any range of hues. You can have blues, you can have greens, you can have violets, you can have oranges, you can have dull, you could have things a little brighter, you could have things a lot brighter, you know, either way. Okay, so we could put these brights in here. And what we're looking at here, though, is a spread of value. So in monochrome, you'll remember, like I showed you a minute ago, you had lights, you had brights, you had dulls, you had darkened dulls, and this brings up an interesting comment in a moment about what is a light, bright, dark, dull. I'll define them all. Lights and brights, darks and dulls, all these words dancing around in your brain. But this basically says that all the values are similar or the same in theory, and the hue or the chroma can be very different. So this could be bright, this could be dull, This could be orange, this can be red, that's different hue, different chroma or intensity, is this being very gray and this being a brighter green. But they're all basically a similar value. Now you'll notice this color is quite dark, right? So that may not be the best one to have out there. And so what I would do at home is I would feel around till I found something that looked more like that value range, right? And if I squint my eyes real hard, maybe that gray is a little too dark, but it's hard to find another, a perfect match. But you want to have something that feels like your eyes just sort of spread over the surface. You obviously don't want to have a color that's so dark or something that it distinguishes itself from the rest of the colors, or so light that it would also distinguish itself a bit more. If you blur your eyes, you'll see that this one glows a bit more. And now on this note, I'm saying words like bright and dull and maybe a little lighter or darker, but I said light here and I said dark here a second ago. Okay? Consider this. We all know what light and bright looks like. That's pretty common and acceptable to see a light, bright color. We also know pretty well what a dark, dull color looks like. And I don't know if you're reading this as a green, but it's a greenish color, and it's quite dull. I might be able to slip in another one that you'd see better, and maybe that shows better. So that is dark and dull. Light and bright, dark and dull. Now if we take light and dull, that would be something like this, kind of a creamy color, and it's very, this is orange in reality. It looks kind of violet on the camera. I'll see if I can find another light dull. They're kind of hard to find in the color aid pack. This isn't fabulously light, but it's too bright in your camera. Let me see if this is, that's kind of light and dull, a little bit light. That one underneath is a little lighter. It almost, I don't know if it's appearing, but it's actually a cream. Cream is a classic light dull. Now this is a bright dark. So this is a bright dark. It's very intense, and maybe, you know what I'm realizing, is seeing it in the camera, it might be easier to see these if we had a row of them. So I might grab a very light, bright green. I could also say this is bright, but not as light. This is darker, darker, lighter, both very bright. Now if I was to look around and find something very, 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 very dull, that would be a gray. That's achromatic gray, all right? And then if I was to find something in between, I'd want to say, what's a neutral that would be a step up from this? And that would be something that still has green in it maybe, but is significantly dulled. So you know that to dull a green, you have to mix in something of a red. And so this color is a mixture of these two. And it may look more like this to your eyes, but it has a fair amount of this color in it to make it actually appear that dull. Now, what I wonder is what's in between these. I understand this is the dullest, absolute gray. I understand this is the brightest, what we call a pure color out of the tube is how we'd refer to it. You might want those like that. And then something like this is what we'd say is in between. So what's in between is something where it's still green. We still call this green. But we call it a duller green, and possibly we'd call it like non-spectral. So this would be spectral because it's so pure, and maybe this is a better version of it, but this is a little bluer, this is a little yellower, but they're still pretty good. If I wanted to look around and find a perfect green, let's see if this is better. This looks a lot better. How's that? Is that a little less blue? In the camera it appears bluish, but it's actually a pretty good green, and it's quite bright. So now you'll notice that when we get to this one, it has more of an orange in it. So I'm going to go to this one because I think in the camera this appears pure green. This has orange in it, or a little bit of a mixture. So if we look back at the color wheel for a minute, you'll notice the greens are over here. And this green is starting to head this way. It's starting to get what I would say yellow or orange in it, but it's messy. It's not a pure green, like it's not just these two colors. It's got a little bit of this in it, so it's getting sort of warm. And then when you go a little further, you get down here. So this is a nice range from bright to dull. And they're all very similar values. They're sort of not so light, not so dark. Again, if you're confused, just pick up a light color and realize, oh, that is darker. But then if you say, well, then is this just dark? Then pick up a dark and you'll realize, no, it's lighter than this, right? It's lighter than this. This is lighter than this, but this is also lighter than this. So it's a relationship thing, right? What is light, what is dark, and what's in between. So in essence, these four colors are more similar in value. Very different in chroma, going from dull to bright. This is a neutral. This is achromatic gray. This is very bright. You get the drift? Cool. So you understand a little bit about spread. And then clash, the last thing you have to discuss on the color wheel is clash. And clash is easy to demonstrate. It's basically two colors, like I said earlier, and it's just these two colors, just off of a complementary pair. So this is a classic clash. You'll feel it when you see it, because if you grab a perfect blue and a perfect orange, you'll know that they kind of vibrate off of one another. There's a blue and an orange, okay? And that's complementary. And then if I grab something that's just a little bit off, which is a blue-green, and you put those up against one another, you'll see that they feel a little zuzzy. They feel a little bit more active than do the blue and the green here. Now again, when you see these on a screen, this looks very electric. I almost want to go around and find a blue that's less electric. There we go. Something like that. So those are considered a complementary pair, and these would be considered more of a clashing pair. Okay, so now your homework this week, I'm going to clarify a little bit at the end here. I asked you which sets to do there in the earlier part of the video. And then down here what I want you to do is look only at spread and clash. Temperature I wouldn't worry about too much right now because it plays out in almost everything you're going to pick up. The additional contrasts you will learn later will be simultaneous extension and vibration. They're very complex, and we'll get into them as we go. What you will do for homework is down here. Please read it in person, but it's the simplest thing is I'll send you a little bit of info on it. Well, this is probably enough, but I want you to make your own sets. What you do is you go find 1 to 3 images of each of the categories above, and these images must be from magazines representing your chosen discipline. You'll glue the images to a bristle board and write your reasons for including these images. Now, I'm going to probably send you something on Goethe and how he spoke about color emotionally. He was a fabulous color theorist, and he's on your fact pack under the history section. And I want you to be as specific as you can writing about each designer's decision to use the particular colors that they chose. So you will choose 1 to 3 images representing each of the categories above from designers that you love. And you will show us how or why they chose those colors to represent the meaning of their brand or the intentions that they had emotionally. Thanks so much. Talk to you later. Be good. Bye.